أعوذ بالله الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. Today in our lesson, which is the fourth module, we shall be talking about institutions and governance system. Yesterday, you were talking about the political economics of water. We talked in detail about how politics and how economics of a country influence affordability, accessibility, the quality and sustainability of water. Now, in our lesson today, we shall be talking about institutions and governance system. Now, these are going to be our lesson objectives. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to, number one, define institution and explain their role in shaping decision-making in water governance. Two, differentiate between formal and informal institution. Explain the key functions of institution in water governance. Describe the concept of multi-level governance. Identify the causes and consequences of institutional fragmentation. Then explain the concept of polycentric governance. Evaluate the importance of institutional capacity. Analyze common challenges affecting institutional performance, explain the concepts of accountability and transparency. Then lastly, identify tools and mechanisms used to promote accountability and transparency in water governance. So this is what is going to be our roadmap for our lesson today. Now let us start, please. As always, we always start with a question. And these questions, they are provocative in their nature. These questions are actually pushing you to think. Now they're asking us a question. Even when good policies exist, why do water problems persist? So this is a question that needs an answer. Why is it that we have good laws? Why is it that we have good regulation? Why is it that we have good policies, but still there is a problem with water? Why? What is the reason? So to answer this question, there can be possible reasons to this question. So one of the reasons is weak institutions. The policies are there, but we have weak institutions. When you're talking about weak institutions, we have institutions that don't have the capacity. They don't have the qualification. If you go to the offices that handles issues related to water, you will find that they're not qualified. They're just in those offices because they are related to the politicians. Number two, poor implementation. The policies are there, but then they are not being effectively implemented. Then number three, there can be lack of coordination. There are many departments in a country that deals with water. We have the ministry, we have the parastatal, we have the NGOs. So all these organization and institution, they are fragmented. They are not working together. Then lastly, corruption, al-fasad, or capacity gaps. Capacity gaps is what you are talking about, al-kafa'at. We don't have competency. We don't have people who are qualified in those offices. So how can they work? People, if you have incompetent people who cannot even implement the policies, so how do you expect the governance system to be effective? So the key message is that policies alone are not enough. Policies alone are not enough. Institutions determine whether policies work in practice. It is the institution that will enable us to do what? To implement the policies in the field. Now, let us start. So we are talking about institution. What do we mean by institution? So when you're talking about institution, institutions refer to the established system of rules norms, and organizational structure. So these three things guide us. What should be done? Constrain us that they regulate us, they tell us what not to do, and shape human behavior and decision making within a society. So these institutions, they provide the framework within which individuals, groups, and organizational interact. So from an analytical perspective, institution can be understood at three levels. Number one, rules. So explicit or implicit prescription about what actions are permitted, required, or prohibited. So we have two types of rules. Explicit, they are clear, they are written in the Constitution. Everybody knows. Again, there are some rules that are implicit. They are implied. They are not written, but still you have to follow them. Number two, norms, al-adat, shared expectation and values, tawaqqu'at wa al-qiyam, that influence behavior without formal enforcement. So the norms, they don't require, it's just like al-urf, in Islamic Sharia, we have masadir al-Sharia. So we have the Quran, we have the Sunnah, we have the Ijma, we have the Qiyas, also we have al-urf. So urf min al-masadir kathalik. Then organizations. So organizations, they're structured bodies, e.g. ministries, agencies, councils that implement and enforce the policies and the rules. So a widely accepted interpretation, drawing from the institutional theory, views institution as the rules of the game, while organizations are the players operating within those rules. So this is basically a summary of what institution are. So the institution, they are the rules. Like when you're playing football, you have rules that needs to be followed. Then the organization are the players. They have to follow the rules. Now, when you are talking about types of institution, I'll not be going into detail. I'll just be going quickly. Today I'm not feeling well. We'll just discuss quickly and the important parts only. So we have two types of institution. You have formal institution and you have informal. So when we are talking about formal institution are official, codified that this institution, they've been given powers by the Constitution. So they act as per the code of ethics or the code of conduct and legally recognized system. These are the systems that are known by all the citizens in the country of rules and structures. They are deliberately designed and typically enforced through legal or administrative mechanism. So when we are talking about this formal institution, for example, the Ministry of Water and Irrigation, that's a formal institution. If you go to any country, you'll find that there is the water parastatals. Those are formal institutions. When you come to the informal institution, they are the opposite of the formal. So informal institution consists of unwritten rules, social norms, traditions, and cultural practices that influence behavior outside formal legal system. So here we are talking about al-adat, wal-takalid, wal-urf. They are not written. But in any society, there are some expectation. There are some expectation from you. So there are things that you are expected to do by the society, but it is not written anywhere, And when you're talking about the informal institution, for example, in Somali, you have the clans, you have the council of elders, those are informal institutions, but people respect them. Now, so this is just an example in water governance, how formal institutions, the ministries of health, the Ministry of Water, the national water policies, ila ghairi dhalik. Now, Functions of institutions in water governance. This is very important. We cannot skip this. So, what is the work of these institutions? The work of these institutions are divided into 5. This institution, they have the allocation function, regulation function, coordination function, conflict resolution function, and accountability function. That is the work of any institution in any country. So number 1, allocation. So what is allocation? Allocation refers to the process through which institutions determine who has access to water, how much water they receive, when, and under what condition. So this is the first response. Any institution. So they will determine who is going to get water and how much of water they are going to receive, how many liters on a daily basis, and when are they going to receive it regularly and under what condition. So this involves distribution of water among competing users. So the government, the ministries, they decide which sector, how much water is going to agriculture, how much is going for domestic use, how much is going to the industry. Establishing water rights and entitlement. Who has the right? Who doesn't have the right? Prioritizing use during scarcity. So also during when there is no rain, they have to ration the water. So these days, some areas, area A will get water. Then tomorrow, area A will not get water, area B. Then, so allocation based on the needs and demand. Number 2 is regulation function. So regulation involves the creation and enforcement of rules, standards, and guidelines governing water use, quality, and conservation. So it involves setting water quality standards, licensing and permits for extraction, pollution control measures, monitoring compliance, and enforcing penalties. So this is the core amongst the regulations. So they create the law, they create the standards, al-ma'ayir, and also they create the guidelines, irshadat, that people need to follow. Number 3 is coordination, tansik, coordination function. So when we are talking about coordination function, coordination refers to the role of institution in aligning actions and policies across multiple sectors, stakeholders, and administrative levels. So this involves integrating water management across sectors, agriculture, energy, urban planning, linking national, regional, and local governance structure, facilitating cooperation among stakeholders. Remember, when you're talking about governance, we are talking about different actors. Like yesterday we said, we have the government as an actor, we have the NGOs as actors, we have the community as actors. So there needs to be coordination between all the stakeholders. And it cannot be done unless by the institutions. Then conflict resolution function. So these functions involve mechanism for preventing tajannub, managing, and resolving dispute over water access, use, and control. Remember, yesterday we talked about conflicts related to water. So conflict is one of the reason that that's what leads to misunderstanding between communities, between regions, between countries. So the institutions are there. So it involves mediation and negotiation process. If there is any conflict, they are the ones who are going to be in the middle. Then legal adjudication through courts or tribunals. This institution, they also do what? If any of the party takes any case to law, to the courts of law, they are also involved. Then also community-based dispute resolution system. So sometimes some people, they don't go to the court, they go to the council of elders. So that is an informal institution. So the informal institution, the council of elders, the clan leaders, the Salatin, they're going to solve the problems. Now, lastly, accountability function. So accountability ensures that decision makers, the ministers, the MPs, those who sit in power and institution are answerable, mas'uliyatu, muhasabin, for their actions and performance in water governance. So this is all about transparency in decision making. They need to be transparent, reporting and monitoring. So these are the elements of good governance. They have to report to us. How much money did they collect from water? How much did they use it? You know, mechanism for public participation. We need to participate and be engaged. And oversight. Oversight means check and balances. We need to check them. And anti-corruption measures. There are departments that deals with corruption. So if the minister is being suspected of stealing and embezzling funds that were meant for water and infrastructure development, then they have to be arrested. They have to be taken to a court of law. And if they are found guilty, then they need to go to prison. So these are the 5 key functions of the institutions. Now, on to the next thing. The next thing is about multi-level governance. So when we are talking about multi-level governance, we are basically saying that in any country, we have different levels of governance. So number 1, you have the local level. So this is in the community. Number 2, at the country level, national level. Number 3, the regional level. For example, Somali is the East African community. So the East African community, then the global level. Now, the local level, who are the actors in the local levels? So in the community, Al-Mujtama, we have the communities, we have the Water Users Association, and municipal or district government. So every part has a local government, the local government, you know. Now, their roles and functions involve day-to-day water management. They manage the daily use of water in their areas, operation and maintenance of local water systems, implementation of rules and practices at a local level, then community-based monitoring and so the level, this local level institution, they work at a local level. Then we have the national level now. Here we have the Ministry of Water and Environment. It manages all the issues related to policy formulation. So the ministry will regulate. The ministry will come up with rules and regulations that needs to be followed. National water strategy and planning. Planning, every country, they have a plan. They have a strategic plan. That is, the strategic plan is about how much water they have. Number 2, the sectors that are going to use the water. You know, then they also, when it comes to planning, strategic planning, there is also the element of the costs. So it is all decided at the national level. Resource allocation across regions. It is the ministry in Mogadishu down there in town. They are the ones who are going to decide that this town is going to get how much of water, how much of the infrastructure, ila ghairi dhalik. Then oversight and regulation. The national level is checking the local level, how it is operating. Then now we have the regional. The regional, now here we are talking about the what? When you're talking about the regional, we are talking about the, for example, the East African region, or for example, the ECOWAS, you know, they're regional in themselves, the River Basin Organization, interregional coordination bodies. So you normally have, for example, in the East African community, the ministers of water, they normally meet and strategize how water policies are going to be between countries, you know. So their roles and function involves managing water resources at the hydrological basin level rather than political boundaries. So they are not basically related more into politics, but it is all about hydrological. Because, for example, we have the Indian Ocean. Many countries are sharing the Indian Ocean. So the Ministry of Water in one country cannot decide, because this is a shared resources. The River Nile, if there is a problem with River Nile, so this is a regional thing. For example, the issue of Egypt, Sudan, and what? Ethiopia. That is a regional thing now, because many countries are involved. Then lastly, we have the global level. So in the global level, of course, we have international organization. They also play a part. The World Bank, the United Nations, multilateral agreement and convention. So there is also agreement between countries at a national level. Then development partners and global networks. So these are the 4 levels of what? Now, sometimes this multi-level governance, they normally face a lot of challenges. So what are the challenges? Coordination across level. So policy at one level may not align with implementation at another. Number 2, information gaps between levels can hinder decision making. So sometimes you find at the local level, they don't have enough information. The national level, they don't supply the local level with enough information. So you find that there is an information gap. So here, vertical integration is necessary to ensure coherence between policy top and practice bottom. So there need to be a bottom up and bottom up communication. Then overlapping responsibilities. Multiple institutions may have unclear or competing mandates, duplication of roles. So sometimes you find the roles are the same. The local levels and the national levels, they are doing the same thing. So this is not as what is Diwajia. They are doing the same thing. So the roles have to be clearly defined. Clarity of roles, okay, and institutional design is essential to avoid fragmentation. This is what is known as fragmentation. Like there are a lot of conflict, there are a lot of duplication. Power imbalances. Higher levels may dominate decision making. The ministry, at the national level, sometimes they decide everything. Then at the local level, they just have to implement. So local voices may be marginalized. So the local people in the community there, they don't have a voice when it comes to decision making. So they just enforce policies on them, that the policies that they did not participate actually in regulating. Then capacity differences. Local institution may lack technical or financial resources. National institution may lack local knowledge. So here they're basically telling us the local institution may lack technical or financial resources. Down there, sometimes they don't have enough financial strength. They don't have enough capacity, which can hinder their functionality. And also the national institution may lack local knowledge. Even in Mogadishu, maybe they don't have enough information about what is happening down there, Filkaria. Now, another thing we have to learn is about institutional fragmentation. Sometimes when you're talking of fragmentation, think about a tashattut. When something is fragmented, like a stone, if you throw it, it breaks into pieces, fragments. So sometimes institutions, they are fragmented. This one is working east, this one is working west, the other institution is working Jonuban, like further. So what is institution? In an exam, you can be asked to define what is institutional fragmentation. So institutional fragmentation occurs when multiple organizations, agencies, or government bodies operate within the same sector, that is water, but now this is the problem, with overlapping, unclear, or poorly coordinated responsibility. So when you are talking about overlapping, we are basically talking about there are some roles that are supposed to be done at the local government, local level, the national level, they are doing it. That is not their responsibility, or vice versa. Or sometimes the roles are not clear. Or sometimes there is poor coordination. So you can imagine in a football match, there are 11 players. We have the defenders, we have the midfielders, we have the strikers. So what is going to happen if the defenders, they don't know their position? They go and strike. What is going to happen if the goalkeeper is going to be the midfielder? What is going to happen? That is fragmentation. So for us to win, if you want to win, each and every player needs to play in their position. The same thing happens in institutions. Each and every institution should clearly know their roles, their responsibility, and their scope, al-hudud. But sometimes the overlapping happens because you are encroaching in an area that is not yours. So all these things lead to resulting in lack of coherence in decision making and implementation. So all these things affects decision making and implementation. This one at the local level is saying this, they make this decision. At the national level, they make this decision. Implementation also is very different. So the end result is further. So fragmentation is not simply the presence of many institutions. It is the absence of effective coordination and integration among them. So we have the institution, yes, there are very many, but the problem is there is no coordination and there is no integration. التكامل بين هذه المؤسسات. Now, what are the causes of this institutional fragmentation? So number one, sector-based siloed governance. That is, different sectors such as water, agriculture, energy, and environment are governed by separate ministries or agencies, each with its own objective and policy. So this one normally happens because every sector, water, they have their minister, agriculture, they have their minister, the energy, they have their ministry, the environment, they have their ministry. And each one of them, they have their objective, they have their policies. So sometimes there will be a tadarub. Because this is what is meant by siloed. So policies are developed independently without considering cross-sector impact. So the Ministry of Water, they will make their own policy without considering its effects on agriculture. Agriculture will also make their own policy. Number two, lack of coordination mechanism. Even where multiple institutions exist, there may be no effective platform or processes for communication, collaboration, and joint decision making. So we don't have the platforms. They are not there where people can communicate through WhatsApp group or collaboration through workshops and seminars. Those platforms are not there. Then weak institutional design. So institutional mandates may be poorly defined, ambiguous, or overlapping, often due to weak legal and policy framework. So there are always confusion over who does what. So the job description is not clear. And if the job, that is when you're applying for any job, there is the job description, what you're supposed to do. But at the ministry level, the job description is not clear. Then political and administrative factors. So sometimes you find there is the power struggle between agencies. This ministry, they want a lot of money. There are a lot of politics involved, So this can also lead to fragmentation. Now, this fragmentation, it can lead to inefficiency, where inefficiency basically means you are not using your resources, in the best interest of people, conflicting policies, تضارب في السياسات, gaps in service delivery. So when you're talking about gap in service delivery, some communities may lack access to reliable water services because of the confusion. Then increase conflict. Then lastly, reduce sustainability. So it leads to mismanagement, and the net effect is that we are not going to have water for a good period of time. Now, this is just an example. So lastly, because we only have 5 minutes or 8 minutes remaining, so in these 8 minutes, I'll just like to talk about one thing, which is very important. It is known as the institutional capacity. This is a very important thing in governance, because we normally have the institution, but what is the capacity? What is the kafa'at of this institution? And performance, these two things are very important in governance. So what is institutional capacity? Institutional capacity refers to the ability, imkania, of institution to do what? To effectively perform their core functions. So if they can perform their core function effectively, they have the capacity. If they don't, then they don't have the capacity. So including designing policies. Can this institution design policies? Can they implement those decisions? And can they enforce? If they can do these three things, mashallah, they have the capacity. Now, what are the key elements of capacity? If you want to know if a ministry or an institution has the capacity, number one is the human resource. So when you're talking about the human resources, the skills and expertise. So the knowledge, skills, and experience of personnel within our institution in Africa. Do we have experts? Do we have policy analysts? Do we have planners? Do we have field staff and inspectors? The problem in Africa, in most of our institutions, our human resource, they lack the skills and expertise. And that is why we are facing a lot of problems. Because of وضع الناس غير مناسب في مكان غير مناسب. So we are not putting the right people on the right places. We are not doing that. What we are doing, we are giving position based on Kabali. This is from my tribe, it's from my region. Khalas, that is the qualification. Man, Arif. So it is not all about mother in Dhaka. Number two, financial resources. Financial resources is the availability of adequate and sustainable funding to support institutional activities. Our ministries, most of our ministries in Africa, they don't have the budget allocation. The money they are getting is not enough. They cannot operate. So they don't have the capacity. So they cannot perform. Number three is technical capacity. Access to and use of appropriate tools, technologies, data system, and infrastructure. We are talking about AI now. But if you go to our ministry, you'll find that the system they are using, they're very old, they're very traditional, they're very classical. They have not integrated AI in their system, in their management information system, even the service they are giving, So in some countries, for example, if you want to pay for water, you can pay through your mobile phone. You don't have to go to the office physically to pay water there. But in some African countries, you have to go there physically to pay water bill. Then administrative and organizational system. The internal structures, procedures, and processes that enable institutions to perform efficiently. You find that in most of our countries, or most of our ministries, the structures and procedures of performing the work, we don't have clear organizational structure. The roles and responsibilities are not clear. We don't have standard operating procedures. Mafish aslan. Then lastly, legal and regulatory support. So our institutions, they don't have lawyers. They don't have people who have some competencies in law, because in any institution, you need to have a department of law. So they will help you to navigate the problems and the conflicts that you get. Now, what are the common challenges to institutional capacity? Number one is very clear. We have said it, lack of funding. Most of our institutions, they don't have money. Number two, limited expertise. They don't have enough skills. They have not. Some of them they even did not go to school, but they are managing those institutions. Weak enforcement mechanism. Sometimes the rules, policies are there, but we don't have police. We don't have people to enforce the policy. If they are there, they are also corrupt. Then institutional instability. So you find that there is frequent restructuring of agencies. This government comes, they come with their system. Political interference. The politicians, they interfere with decisions. Then poor coordination, no communication, fragmented responsibility. Now, then lastly, of course, we have the issue of accountability and transparency. Accountability is about al-muhasaba. So when you're talking about al-muhasaba, it is all about each and every person in power. They need to be answerable for their actions, decision, and performance. But in Africa, does it happen? If you go to Europe, the other countries, if you do any mistake, if anything happens in the ministry, you say, okay, I'm going to resign. I'm going to resign because I have failed. But in Africa, you do a mistake, you stay in the next election, you are elected in the office. In fact, they clap for you. You are not answerable. Now, number two is transparency. Transparency is shafafia. So shafafia basically means, it refers to the extent to which information, decision, and processes are openly. The keyword is open, as shafafia. So everything the institutions are doing, they need to share with the public. But does it happen? It rarely happens. So if our institution, if our institution are accountable and transparency, what is going to happen? We will reduce the corruption. We will build trust in our institution. We will improve their performance, and there will be equity and fairness. Okay, so that is in brief. That was our lesson for today. Okay, so today we'll just stop. We'll not have the second section. The second session will just finish this first session. So is there any question? We only have 30 seconds remaining. So I'm going to send you the attendance. So please take the attendance. Let me send it now. Just write your name. So I have sent the attendance in your WhatsApp group. So let us meet, inshallah, next week for lesson. So there are some areas I did not cover because of time. So you can review the polycentric governance. Just read it during your free time. And if there'll be any question about it, you'll ask me in our next lesson. So I just left it deliberately because the institutional capacity and performance